Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda. Thank you so much for being a viewer. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. I want you to know that I work hard every single day behind the scenes in order to be able to create this content for you. All I ask of you, if you're new to our channel, check out the body of work on our channel and consider clicking the like button. If you learn something new, consider subscribing and consider enabling notifications so that you can get important news pertaining to the country, pertaining to the economy and your money. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda. Right here is some information about me. Check out my introductory video. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. Let's just jump right in. We know that the massive $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan is now law. The Biden administration, the Biden team is saying that this will help individuals overcome the cycle of poverty. On your screen, you'll see the cycle of poverty. It's very, very difficult for a majority of our fellow Americans to escape the cycle of poverty. And all people need is a little bit of help to be able to escape this. I can tell you that I was able to overcome the cycle of poverty myself, and I did it because I had access to the right individuals and because I found myself in certain situations that were engineered by me in order to allow me to take advantage of certain situations and it's essentially exploit the opportunities that were made available to me. At the end of the day, everything needs to be paid for. So the big question is, how are we going to pay for the American Rescue Plan? Well, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has been a proponent of the American Rescue Plan from day one, and in a brand new report from the Washington Post, you see this article from the Washington Post on your screen. Yellen pushes a global minimum tax as the White House eyes a new spending plan. The Biden administration is looking to reverse a decades-long race to the bottom in corporate taxation, but obstacles loom large. So what does this fundamentally mean? Now, right now with the American Rescue Plan, it's raining money, but at the end of the day, all this money has to come from somewhere. Otherwise, like that, we'll just simply run out of money. So the fundamental approach of the Republicans has been, let's lower taxes, let's lower corporate income taxes so that companies can stop outsourcing, so that companies can essentially create more jobs because they are not having to pay that much tax. Fundamentally, when companies pay less tax, they are more likely to invest in their own systems. They're more likely to invest in more resources. They're more likely to get larger buildings. They're more likely to get a lease in a fancy location. They're more likely to buy more office furniture, invest in computers, invest in software, invest in systems, and yes, invest in people. So when they invest in people, what that does is that leads to more jobs and more employment. Now, the ironic thing is, the individuals that they hire, the jobs that they create, the taxes end up getting paid by those employees. This is why I believe our system is rigged, because the individuals at the very top make the most amount of money, and the way the system is structured, they end up paying the least amount of taxes. And here's the interesting part, they can actually hire accountants, they can hire attorneys that can help them exploit the tax code. I'm not saying they do something wrong, but what I am saying is they are very good at understanding the way tax law is written. Fundamentally, the way tax law is written to make things easier for the government, because if the government doesn't have to worry about jobs, the government doesn't want to worry about unemployment and then pay out all these unemployment benefits. The government doesn't want to worry about affordable housing, which is why there are significant tax advantages to those who buy rental properties. I buy a lot of single family homes. There are advantages to individuals and companies that invest in or that create clean energy, because at the end of the day, that becomes a focus depending on which administration is in power. But again, the corporate taxation is low because the Republicans have fundamentally believed that keeping the taxes low would encourage employment, would encourage the growth of the companies, would encourage more innovation, would keep things within the United States of America, so that these companies should not go to other countries and keep their money offshore or set up these large campuses overseas. The American government wants the innovation and wants the employment to happen inside the United States of America. So when you start to say, hey, I'm going to raise corporate income taxes, could that discourage innovation? Could that discourage companies from continuing to employ people in America? That is the conundrum. So here's a predicament, and I'll quote the Washington Post article, and as always, you'll get a link to all of our resources in the description section below. Here's a quote from the article. The $1.9 trillion stimulus legislation signed into law last week was financed completely by additional federal borrowing, but the administration is expected to raise taxes at least partly to pay for its own big ticket spending priorities, such as the massive infrastructure and jobs package being discussed by the White House officials. A key source of new revenue probably will be corporate taxes, which President Donald Trump cut sharply in 2017. Although he has not proposed entirely reversing Trump's cut in the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, President Biden has said he would aim to raise potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue from big businesses. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, raising corporate taxes is going to make companies go, oh, wait a minute, should I go to another country? I'll continue quoting the article. But some tax experts, business groups, and Republican lawmakers say raising the tax could damage U.S. competitiveness. Countries worldwide have both recently and over the past several decades joined the United States in reducing tax rates to attract corporate investment. Folks, if the tax rates are lower for, I'm just going to throw out a company. Well, this is an important company because it is my number one holding, Apple. If suddenly Germany says, hey, Apple, come on here, have your businesses here, we'll do the manufacturing here, we'll give you this, these tax advantages. And then if Apple were to outsource a part of its operations to Germany, this is an oversimplified example. Then what happens to the Apple campuses? What happens to employment, by Apple of US engineers, who, by the way, are the most innovative engineers in the entire world? So, folks, I'm as much of a patriot as the next guy, but I feel very passionate about our country and about our entrepreneurship. I really do. I actually do get into arguments with family members who in any remote way, shape, or form criticize American competitiveness. So that was an absolutely irrelevant side note. Let's get back to the news. So basically, countries worldwide have both recently and over the past several decades joined the United States in reducing tax rates, and a trend that some economists view as a destructive race to the bottom. The average tax rate amongst countries, I'm talking corporate tax rate now, okay, for large companies is 24%. Just last year, 9 countries, including France, actually lowered their corporate tax rates, essentially following the 2017 corporate tax rate reduction from the United States. In fact, according to Joseph Stiglitz, who's a Nobel Prize-winning economist at Columbia University, and he's a mentor actually of our US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, he said this, and I quote, "It's a little like the Paris Climate Accord of taxes. Every country thinks that it can steal business from others by lowering taxes, and the only beneficiary of that race to the bottom has been the richest multinational corporations." So what does this mean in practice? This means that, again, Apple's just an example. I'm not saying that Apple's going to do this. I want you to know I love Apple. I'm an Apple bull. And whenever I can, I just buy more Apple. So Apple's my biggest holding because I feel that when you're buying Apple, you're buying American innovation. And I'm never going to bet against American innovation. Whether or not Apple has their own car, whether or not Apple invents a watch that can check your blood sugar levels, or whether or not Apple does anything, I believe that we are going to see some major innovation. And I believe the phones are just the beginning of the story. Anyway, enough talking about that one stock. I mean, Apple is just one example. Let's take Airbnb, for example. This means that companies like Apple and Airbnb, like, oh, should I go to America? Should I go to Germany? Should I relocate my operations to Australia? Oh, what about France? Why not France? And all those countries are like, yeah, come on over. We're going to cut your taxes so you can be here. You can set up jobs. You can create jobs, and you'll boost the economy, and there'll be more people coming here, and blah blah blah. So basically, what the economist is saying is that basically the biggest multinational corporations win when corporate taxes are in a race to the bottom. So what exactly is Janet Yellen trying to do? Janet Yellen is trying to have a global minimum tax for companies so that France can't say, oh, America, you reduced it to 21, we're going to reduce it to 19. Germany says, oh, you reduced it to 19, I'm going to reduce it to 14. And then India says, I'm going to reduce it to 9. And Australia says, I'm going to reduce it to 6. Again, this is an oversimplified example, but you get the point. So what is the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is doing? The US Treasury Secretary is trying to curb the practice of every country cutting their corporate tax rates in an effort with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in which 140 countries are participating. So the goal is to get countries to agree with each other, essentially the whole world agrees, in principle, to a minimum corporate tax rate. In other words, you're not going to go lower than that. Think about this for a second. Here we are in the United States of America, trying to put food on the table, trying to pay rent, trying to keep the lights on. There are individuals who are experiencing hunger for the first time. Individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality have essentially lost their jobs forever. And here we are, the US Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, who, by the way, is someone I admire, trying to get other countries to agree to not reduce taxes on the richest companies. Think about that for a second. There's somebody on one hand who's struggling to put food on the table, and here the US Treasury Secretary is trying to make sure that we don't continue to make the richest companies richer. I want you to think about that for a second, and then let's put the cycle of poverty back on your screen right here. Here we have the cycle of poverty that millions of our fellow Americans are suffering. And then on the other hand, we have corporate taxation, which is in a race to the bottom, and a global minimum tax being proposed by the US Treasury Secretary to make sure that the richest companies don't continue to get richer. Now, here's the thing though, even if she agrees, it's going to be non-binding and simply going to be, handshake. It's going to be a handshake agreement, and this would, it's something, I suppose it's something, but it would make it harder for multinational corporations to say, hey, I'm leaving the US unless you lower your taxes, or I'm going to go to that country. If all countries have a global minimum tax, then there's a likelihood that corporations will not jump from one country to another to chase lower tax rates in different countries. And as all this is happening, President Biden needs to find a way to pay for all of this, because all of this is done with borrowed money. Here's a headline of an article on your screen from Bloomberg. Biden eyes the first major tax hike since 1993 in the next economic plan. Tax increases would help fund the long-term US economic recovery, and corporate and capital gains are targeted for hikes. So there is a likelihood that individuals earning more than $400,000 will end up paying more in taxes. Let me know if you want me to dig deeper into who's going to end up paying more in taxes. Although a majority of our fellow Americans, there'll be no impact from a tax standpoint, but let me know if you want me to cover that. I'll end up paying significantly more in taxes, and I say that with a smile because I'm okay with it. I think at some point, some individuals should pay more taxes than others. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I'm really looking forward to helping you get to the next level in your life. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, it's about the economy, and it's about your money. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.